Wendy, are we live right now?
Yeah, we are. Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Awesome.
joining us today. We're joined by Trevor Mackenzie, author of Dive into Inquiry, joining us from Victoria, BC. And we're so thrilled to have a little discussion today based off of a thought-provoking question that Trevor posed recently to our community. So without further ado, Trevor, I'll go ahead and have you share a bit with us about your post and what caused you to think about student data and the types of data that we're collecting and what we should be collecting. And if you're watching in the community, we are just sharing where you might land on that spectrum and why.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, and thanks for people for being here. I know people, I was looking at the RSVP list, and there are people from all across Canada, people from across the US, people in Australia and Europe. So it's nice to know people are interested in having this conversation around data. A little bit of a backstory behind my philosophy on data and really my motivation for tweeting out the graphic. It's a graphic I share during keynotes, when I'm sharing my philosophy on learning and our role as educators. And it really surfaced from the first few years of my teaching career. I spent the first years of my career working with really at-risk students and students that had a bunch of challenges facing them each and every day and barriers to their learning. And so if you've read Dive into Inquiry, you know of Garrison and some of the students that I'm talking about right now. We had a very strong team of teachers that would come together and support these at-risk students. And we would meet weekly. It was a Wednesday morning. We'd meet for about an hour and a half before school started over coffee and food. And we would talk about the students that we were seeing either with behavioral challenge or attendance challenges or academic challenges. And every single student that we identified as having some kind of challenge, whether it was behavioral or attendance or academic, with the team of people who knew them the best and who knew the families and who were on our counseling team and who were in contact with the families at home, every single student had a story that needed to be heard. And that story really did shape the behavior and the attendance and the academic challenges we were witnessing. And when I discovered these stories that at first glance I didn't know, because I didn't know my students as well as the team that came together did, it really helped me understand why the behavior was showing and why the attendance issues were surfacing and why the academic challenges were occurring. And so, that was really a big curveball for me in my career. I was always data driven. I think data is really important for us to use to inform our practice and revise as we go and make tweaks as we roll out things in our classroom. But I didn't think, or I think what this story reflects is that the data I was collecting wasn't enough. There needed to be more data, more personalized data. And it was those stories of what was happening beyond the classroom that was really shaping the student that was arriving in the classroom. It was that data that I needed to start to collect. And so, my understanding of data, it shouldn't be an either or. I'm not saying one is more important than the other, but all too often in education, we get so bogged down with the X's and O's of what we do and the attendance, the academic, and the behavioral reports that we have to submit, that oftentimes we lose sight of the student in front of us day in and day out. And so that's what really prompted the image, the graphic getting created and getting tweeted out. And I mean, in the first 24 hours that it was out there, it was tweeted about 500, 600, 700 times. And it kind of grew in terms of momentum, and the conversation that was happening on Twitter was really powerful. And so we just saw an opportunity to open up this conversation to a wider audience to try to see what our understandings around data are and where are you in terms of the data that you collect, and how comfortable are you using that data to guide your practice and shape your understanding of your students. So that was really the philosophy behind it, Wendy, and I'm thrilled that it resonated so much with people. Do we want to go to the chat and see who's here? Do we want to introduce some guests? Where do you want to go from here, Wendy? Are you there, Wendy? Can you hear me okay? I see the chat is super live. We see some friends here. I'm just looking at the chat. Thanks for being here, folks. Some people don't have access to webcams. That's okay. If you have a question, folks, that you'd like post right in the live chat of the YouTube channel, feel free to do so, and we could just answer the text prompt right there, and just get the conversation rolling. Wendy, we do have a special guest. Do we want to introduce our special guest that's in the chat right now? Because I'm happy to do so. Why don't we go that route? Folks, we have a grade 9 student from Ottawa, Canada. His name's Omar, and I think, Omar, you'll have to tell us about how you connected to the graphic, and tell us a bit of a backstory as to, how come you are after school chiming into this discussion, how come you volunteered to be a part of it. I'm thrilled that you're here, Omar. Do you want to share with us a bit of your story?
Sure, why not? So
Thanks.
again, like Mr. Trevor stated, my name is Omar. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And how I got into this conversation about data collecting was my grade 8 teacher posted a link to this chat, I guess, and he basically said to his students that follow him on Twitter to join this and share your student voice and point of view about like data collecting.
I love it. I love it. What an awesome teacher you have there. What's your teacher's name? Can you share your teacher's name?
Yeah, Nicholas Jana.
Awesome. Right on, Nicholas. Thanks for pushing your students towards this rich conversation. And going to the chat, Omar, and seeing the graphic, why does it resonate with you? What do you think of it?
So first off, I'd like to state that I completely agree with the picture that you shared on Twitter. Just because teachers tend to deal with what's visible in connection with students in their class, such as attendance, assessments, and report cards. Teachers might be right in some extent in terms of dealing with students, just like numbers. While students are obviously far more beyond numbers, students are human beings. And before I end my point here, there's one more thing. I'd like to say that in order for a teacher to create a successful student, teachers, in my opinion, should build their assessment on insight and somehow invisible aspects as their stories, passions, interests, and last but not least, like it says on the picture, their goals. And yeah, that's kind of my point of view that I wanted to bring here.
Omar, I love it. You're so well prepared. I got to ask, because you sounded so good. Yeah, did you put a lot of thought into what you wanted to share with us tonight?
Yeah, definitely. After I was done my homework, which was it's 7:10 here in Canada, so it was like about 30 minutes ago. I opened up Microsoft Word and just typed up something that I wanted to share here. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. And do you feel like you have teachers that you work with right now, or that you've worked with in the past, that have gotten to know you as a student, more of a student, but also as a person, and they've gotten to know your interests and your passions and what it is that you love to do with your time?
Oh, definitely. Especially my again, like I stated before, my grade 8 teacher who shared this, best teacher ever in my opinion. Yeah, we had this assignment. It was like a persuasive essay on what our goals are in life and in the future. And he said like to keep it, follow your dreams. Like yeah, it wasn't just like the normal. Most teachers in high school, they would just like basically teach a course and just leave without knowing the student, whatever, just names, whatever. But my teachers in the past really got to know me as a person and my interests, hobbies, and goals, basically.
Yeah. And do you feel, Omar, I'll put you on the spot, you're so well spoken, so I'm pretty confident you'll handle the questions on the fly really well. So do you feel like your teachers, the ones that have taken the time to get to know you as we're talking about, do you feel like you want to do better in those classrooms? Like you're just more engaged and you just feel like you can trust them more? Is there some kind of heightened, presence for you in the classroom? Do you want to be there more?
Yeah, definitely. I'll say a little secret here. I'm not a huge fan of school. I never really liked school that much in my life. But when a teacher is so open with the students and talks to the students like their buddy, not just like some person you don't know, just like names, whatever. this made me love school. Every day I would come home and I would say to my parents, you know, I don't want to be absent tomorrow or whatever, even though I'm sick. I want to.
That's fantastic, Omar. You know, and you know we've got a really good audience here. We've got people that follow me from all across the globe. We've got people that follow EdTechTeam from around the world. If you had to tell this audience one thing to help them change their teaching practice, beyond what the graphic proposes in terms of, you know, getting to know your students, what would be one tip that you'd want every teacher in the world to take on for themselves? Can you share one tip, Omar?
I'd like every teacher that would like to connect with their students more to basically talk to them, ask what are their goals in life, and encourage them, basically make them love school. If they don't like school, make them love school, basically. That's what I would like.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Thanks, Omar. It looks like we have a couple guests coming in to join in on the debate. And if you guys are looking at our graphic here that we're sharing about data we should collect versus data we do collect, and there's some really great points on the actual tweet. I'll drop it into the chat, but you know, I think the reason we had a conversation today with Omar, and we also have Andy and Karen joining us as well, is Trevor, there is a lot of folks that see both sides of the argument and see the need to collect insights. I really liked how Omar mentioned insights about student performance, but how do we combine student performance or mastery of content with that passion that Omar is talking about. So with that, I'll invite Andy. Andy, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know where you're at, what your role is, and perhaps why you joined the discussion today?
Give me 2 seconds, Andy. I just need to interrupt. Wendy, just help me out, okay? Because I'm looking at the YouTube channel, and I don't see that it's live, and I just see some people in the chat wondering when it's going to start. Is there something that we could do to ensure it's actually live? Can you make sure that it is live?
Yeah, my screen is showing live right now.
Yeah, my screen on the Great Data Debate is just showing the screenshot of, you know, EdTechTeam's outer space screensaver. But if you're
weird, I'm showing 5 viewers right now, and I have broadcast on, awesome. And I'm showing live. So I'm not. Do you guys see my live at the bottom of this?
I do on the channel that we're in right now. I see that it says live on the top screen, and the link that you threw in the chat for us earlier. I click on that.
I got it. You got the wrong link.
Oh, do we?
You got.
Thanks, Omar. Appreciate it. But we are live. Okay, Omar, mute your mic and we'll continue the chat then, and we'll kick it over to Andy. Sorry, Andy, I just want to make sure people could hear this lovely conversation we're having. Thanks for joining us. You want to introduce yourself?
Yep, just briefly. So, Trevor and I actually work at the same school.
Oh, we need to make sure the mics are off on all the YouTube channels right now. If you have a YouTube browser open, folks, just mute the browser and make sure that if you're not speaking, your mic's on mute so we could hear Andy nice and clear. Andy, try that again for us.
Sure. So, Andy Kaifong is my name. Karen and I worked together and opened up a new school in New Zealand, year 1 to 13, or K to 12, actually, in your language. And as a new school, we're just kind of exploring different ways of assessing what we should be assessing and the impact that it has on our kids. So hence we've joined the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And you guys are doing amazing things down in New Zealand. Yeah, every time I hear someone in my PLN tweeting something out about New Zealand, and I know Richard Wells really well, and you guys are really doing some fantastic things with regards to personalizing learning and your curriculum. Could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of work going on. I've actually just come back from overseas. I was 8 years in Hong Kong, so I came back to do, I guess, a special project this was. So in the personalising learning space, we are trying to, I guess, explore different ways of making that happen under current sort of rules and guidelines around staffing and resourcing in New Zealand schools. But Karen probably will speak a little bit more to that. She's been here with a lot more experience in that actual, in that place. So that's hand over to her.
Yeah, hi Karen, you want to introduce yourself and share some about yourself?
Yes, kia ora. As Andy said, I'm Karen, and so I'm one of the directors of learning, working at this new school with Andy. And we just did this because we couldn't, because the YouTube clip wasn't showing anything, so that's why we've come into the Hangout really. But really, really passionate about trying to personalise learning, and obviously data is a big part of it because we need to, I guess, deal with that tension between people wanting cohort data and big groups of data, and actually looking at personal data with individual kids, and particularly looking at like the subject of this whole debate was around looking at collecting data around individual passions and how we can use that to further their learning and make shifts in their learning.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you jumped in the Hangout and you're willing to share a little bit about what's going on in New Zealand.
Unbelievable.
I think fun tomorrow. I think fun tomorrow.
Oh,
how cute. I think you're in the same room, Trevor. You guys should get to move next. Are you guys in the same room? No.
Andy and Karen? No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No.
Karen and I are in the same room, yes.
Yes, we are.
Wait, could you guys give each other a high five?
I love it.
There's a house here.
I love it. So when you guys saw the tweet go out and you saw the image come across your tweet deck, what resonated with you, and how come you gave it a retweet and a share?
I think for me, when I saw it, we're in the stages where our own Ministry of Education are keen for us to collect and evidence numerical data on standardised testing, etc., etc. Our space is trying to be a bit more holistic and to be able to, I guess, surface and present in a meaningful way a more holistic picture of what kids can do and a celebration of what they are as people, as well as what they are in sort of more traditional sort of academic views. So that's a really important part of our work, and we're currently working in a small group here looking at blockchain, micro-credentialing, and alternatives to what are traditional ways in New Zealand of evidencing success, which are through grades, numbers, etc., league tables, the ranking of schools, etc. So we want to sort of push outside of that, present a much more holistic and rounded view of individuals as learners and what they can do. And we need to do it in a way that is acceptable to life beyond school, so to the workforce, to the people who are going to be accessing this information and giving it value, because I don't think it is valued currently. I think it's talked about, but I don't necessarily think it's valued.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you're here, because it sounds like you are moving in a really similar direction that I'm moving in, and I'm sure the more I travel and the more I speak and consult, I think this is a global question educators are asking of themselves. How do we weave in more of that holistic whole child view and have that not just shape instruction and make ties to the curriculum, but how can we actually share that with an authentic audience, whether it's with family or community or with higher ed institutions? How do we capture those artifacts that represent the whole child? And it's a big challenge. Do you have any tips, anything that you're doing that you can share with our audience, Andy or Karen, that you feel is a good step in the right direction to honoring the whole child? And that's a big, broad question. It speaks to assessment, it speaks to pedagogy, it speaks to school culture. But do you have anything that you could share that you are doing that you feel is moving us towards identifying those pieces of the student? I love it.
I think there's always been a focus, right from when the school was set up, right from our establishment board, there would be a huge focus on well-being of our students, and trying to hold really dear to that, and trying to make sure that actually first and foremost we're looking at well-being and seeing and actually incorporating those into any personal learning plans for our students. Actually, what are the well-being factors at the moment? Where are they at? Where do they need to move to? Because we know there's such a link between that and then being able to learn really effectively. So yeah, I think trying to hold really firm back to that we need to be looking at, we call it whole order in New Zealand, but really looking at those well-being factors.
Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. Are you sharing your work online anywhere? Do you guys have a blog, or is there a school website where you're sharing some of what it is that you're chewing on? And you know why I ask? I'm super interested. I want to hear more.
Yeah.
Have you gotten that place yet?
We've been a little bit busy the last
Yeah,
6 months.
yeah.
We probably, yeah, it's a space I think we've yet to fill, really. There are some of us who blog personally, but it's kind of taken a back step for the last 6 months. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got quite the project that you're trying to roll out, you know. So yeah, if you want to collaborate at all any further with me, you know, I definitely am an inquiry-based teacher. So I'm constantly tying student passions and interests and curiosities to our curriculum and having those be a part of our learning pathways in our classroom. And that's a big piece of my work, is trying to roll out that personalized thread in schools. So students are not only honored in what it is that they are learning about, but they're a part of every piece of their learning, whether it's pedagogy to resources to assessment. Yeah, and so, yeah, please reach out in the future. It sounds like there could be a rich partnership between us. I'd like to work with you guys further. Thank you for being here.
Well, and I think, Trevor, what Karen and Andy are doing, and all of us here, about assigning value to this is exactly this, and coming and talking about it and sharing about it is the first step to helping shift the value, for sure. And we have a couple other folks on the call. I want to see if maybe, is it Mikal? Did you want to say hi, Mikal, and who you are and what brought you here today? You might be muted. Hi,
Yeah.
we see you. There you are. Hey.
My name's Michael, actually, but it's okay.
Are you the teacher?
I am a teacher, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Are you Omar's teacher?
No, I'm actually, I think I found you guys, I think it was on Twitter as advertised.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted to see what you guys were talking about and kind of just see what the debate was up about and kind of just listen in.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Whereabouts are you located?
Carolina.
North Carolina. Right on. We'll be in South Carolina next summer, so I'll look for you, okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for chiming in. Do you have, you know, when you saw the graphic with regards to data we collect and data we should collect, did anything strike you? Did anything resonate with you? Did you want to share your perspective on what you felt when you first saw it?
Well, I do recall, I think I retweeted, because I think it might have been you maybe that posted, instead of focusing on student data, focus on their passions.
Yeah.
And that really hit home for me, just because, you know, these students are not very engaged if you're just saying, let's focus on, you know, your benchmark test scores, and let's draw like a little, you know, let's color in the graph to show how much you've grown. It's nice, but when you actually implement something that shows like you're really interested in this, I mean, it's like that light bulb just goes off for them, and that you can really just see, you know, how interested they are in that concept and that topic, rather than just that numerical data, that quantitative data. It means a lot more when you're doing something for them and with them, rather than because you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I've always found, Michael, is that whenever a student is connected to the learning in such a meaningful way, when it's their passions or their interests that tie to their learning, I always find that their assessment, you know, their product is always so much better. It's always so much more meaningful to them. They try harder, and my assessment's pure and rich because it's such a solid reflection of what they're capable of. And so I think that actually gets to a better type of data from the first column when we incorporate the second column, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it's very meaningful to them, and for us as educators as well. Yeah.
Well, thanks for chiming in, and thanks for being a part of the movement. I appreciate it. Who
you're welcome.
Have here joining us? I see someone over here. Is it Andrew? Andrew, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself? And if you don't want to, don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but feel free to unmute your mic and say hi and tell us where you're from.
Hi, Trevor. It's I'm Andrew. Sorry, I just got a lot going on in the background, so I didn't turn on my video. I guess it's hard to sort of label myself what I'm doing. I'm based in Ottawa, sort of education consultant, a little bit of teaching, a little bit of instructing, all sorts of things. As some of you might be able to tell from my picture there, that's I was teaching overseas in the Middle East for 4 years, and now I'm making my way back here to Canada to teach. And I'm actually doing a couple little contracts at alternative schools. So it's not about the assessment, the report cards. Like one of them is called the Center for Self-Directed Learning. So I'm teaching a robotics course with them, and I sort of introduced it, and I said, okay, well, I've got an idea for us that we can go on. If you like it, we'll do it. If not, then we'll do something else. And I actually, so I sort of, you know, talked about them, chatted with the kids for a little bit, and then I said, okay, I just need to go to the washroom. And I sort of let them decide where they wanted to go with the projects. And then came back and I said, so what do you want to do? So I was thinking about doing an FLL team or First Lego League team. And then so I came back and they were like, we want to do sumo. I was like, all right, let's do it. So it's completely what they wanted to do. So we'll see where it goes from there. So it's just sort of exciting to see them take their learning and go from there. So yeah.
I love it. Thanks for joining us. I love that you brought up that you're working in with alternative schools, because I think, you know, when we look at alternative schools and even some private school models for that matter, they tend to really do some daring and courageous things with regards to freeing themselves up from the bureaucratic administrative standardization that I think a lot of public schools and a lot of government schools are tied to. And so oftentimes I look at some alternative schools and I really see them doing amazing things with assessment and data collection and student agency. And so a big piece of my movement is to try to incorporate all of those amazing things that I see going on at schools around the world in the public school system, you know, where my curriculum is pretty prescribed and for the most part it is kind of standardized. And there's no reason why we can't do those powerful things with our learners in those structures. And so I really want to try to have a really clear window for other educators to see what that looks like and to see how we can make those meaningful changes for our students. Right, Andrew?
Yeah. The one thing that I still consider myself somewhat of a new teacher. When I was over in the Middle East, I was teaching an Alberta curriculum. For those that don't know, the Canadian provinces each have their own curriculum. So jumping between province, and I think similar to the US as well, jumping between different states, you have different outcomes and expectations and these types of things that you have to sort of, those essential hoops that you were just talking about. Whereas these alternative schools, it's like whatever the kids want to learn, we'll learn together. So having where was it going? Okay, yeah. So coming back to what I was starting off with is that those goals, like for me in my classroom and someone else in another school district down the street, we need to come together and try to get, sort of dive into inquiry together. So that we don't feel like, because sometimes I feel that I'm just sort of reinventing the wheel. Like I know it might be out there, but it's who can I connect with, who's already done it, who's already done some amazing things. So I know that, Trevor, you're based in BC, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think BC has got a wonderful curriculum out there, and it's, I know that the Western protocol for the mathematics, the people in the East Coast are starting to take that. So like for me, it's getting that sort of cohesive education system so that we can all work together to sort of help jump over these goals, because, as new teachers come into the discipline, they sort of are just scrambling to make sure that they get through those outcomes, expectations. Yeah, but if they know that they have people they can rely on and can sort of connect with to help those to set those goals. I think that's great thing, and that's what I love about connecting with people on Twitter and
absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm currently writing my second book. I'm co-authoring it with a fantastic kindergarten teacher here in Victoria named Rebecca Bathurst Hunt. And I'm actually just in the midst of writing a chapter around the characteristics that I think inquiry teachers possess. And one of the characteristics I see in inquiry teachers around the world, the ones that do it really, really well, are that they teach slow. They slow down, and They're not worried about coverage and you know, going through the checklist of learning objectives. They really do slow down and they observe their learners in learning. They're quite observant and they're always asking questions. And I think that's a big piece around what we're talking about with regards to getting the right data collected, is to slow things down and get to know our students, build that relationship and that trust that we know is critical in the classroom to have powerful things occur. And once we've slowed down, you know, the content and the learning objectives will come after that. But slowing down and not getting too worked up over getting through learning rather than we should just settle into learning. I think that's an important message for teachers to hear. I think it's an important message for our students to hear, that, you know, when they walk into our classrooms, they're not going to be rushed through something, that the pace is going to be one that allows them to powerfully engage with the learning process. And, you know, both teachers and students need to hear that notion of slowing things down a bit. Yeah. Wendy, what do you have there in the chat for us? Do you have a couple other prompts or anything that's come up that you'd like us to focus on?
Yeah, I think we're just about at our half hour, folks. So I wanted to open up. It sounds like everyone has shared a bit about why qualitative data or human-oriented data is important. I did want to give a final floor about maybe working with folks who might see on the other side, and any other final tips for either students like Omar who might work with other educators or administrators who are seeing the other side of that data, and what folks can do to help spread this kind of data. Any final thoughts from folks who've joined us today before we wrap up?
A couple of things. I think following on from what you were saying before, Trevor, we had some visitors out here who are, I think resident sort of expert consultants around narrative assessment. Which I think, so learning stories, if you want to call them those, if you like. And the reason I was interested in that is because I think there's an adoption of that in early childhood years here. I think there's a bit of a move to move it into primary schools here, and we're just trying to investigate how perhaps some of that narrative assessment is also applicable to the senior school. So you talk about human data. I guess the other thing for me when I hear that is, although you talk about the exponential change and increasing technology, and I guess I associate that with a need for people to develop in more human ways than we've ever needed to be, to stay relevant and to stay current and not be replaced. So I think there's a sort of a synergy there for me as we collect more human data and more evidence around people being human, that perhaps makes them more current and relevant and meaningful in an ever-changing kind of next 20 to 30 years as well. So for me, there's a synergy in terms of what we're doing.
Andy, I think I fall in love with you. Can we be friends for a long time? I think we're really on the same page, my man. So this is the beginning of something very special, I think. Thank you for being here. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. You too, Karen. I think we're going to be a power couple. Yeah. Let's hear from anybody else. Any other closing thoughts or points that anybody would like to share? Awesome.
Well, great, guys. Thank you so much for joining in this community discussion. We'll leave you with this tweet, and please keep sharing if you are falling on whatever end, data we collect currently, data we should collect. It sounds like everyone is on board with a passion-based collection for sure. So we're all doing the right thing with sharing this and adding value to it. So thanks for coming, everybody. Keep following us and Trevor online. There's Trevor's Twitter handle, and there's always great community events happening. So we applaud you for being brave and coming on camera today, and hope you'll join us for more community events in the future. Thank you so much. Omar already left, but thank you, Michael. Thank you, Karen, Andy, and Andrew. Really great stories, and great to hear what you're doing for your students.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, and keep in touch. Please reach out in the future. I'm going to try to find you on Twitter or send me a DM so we can connect further, guys. Thanks for being here.
Bye, everyone.
Take care. See you.